I'm Roddy, also son of Dave, as you may be able to see visually. And so I suppose we can dive right really into it, unless you want to have a little intro, Dave.
No, I just, we'll talk more about it, but it's just going to be a bit of a casual chat really, isn't it? And prompt me up where you need.
So just diving straight into EZICHEQ, Dave, which is really going to be the basic discussion behind the temporary works. Could you just tell us a little bit about why you created this and just where this was really born from?
Yeah, well, it originally started just before COVID. We were involved in safety nets, and safety nets have got that compliance front where every 12 months we need to be testing them. And we were doing the obligatory testing, and the report was coming in. It was getting filed in the bottom drawer, and nothing was being done about it until we probably just started scratching the surface a bit more about my liability with that. And then the realization that we actually had to do something a bit better, because we didn't know how many nets we had. We didn't know where they were. We didn't know if they were certified or not. So we were just ticking the compliance box rather than really managing it. So that really sort of started the process, and we started using QR codes and that sort of thing. And that came then the realization that we actually had something really to solve for their industry of scaffolding, and that was how we're going to manage temporary works, and also as managers, how we're going to notice more what was going on really. So that's sort of how we got going, and that was about COVID first lockdown.
I assume this was quite an industry-wide issue.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's, if you look into the temporary works, we've got to thank the godfathers that really put together the good practice guidelines many moons ago. You know, we've got the temporary work procedures that were really well set up. Particularly the way we do our certified checks and the handovers, but everything was very paper-based. So the question marks were really going about how, as an industry, do we actually transform into that whole digital space and make this more publicly available. So it wasn't that the industry wasn't doing it well. There was just a better way to do it, really.
And just diving into a little bit about the risk, all of those people involved, not only just yourself. Could you just talk a little bit about that?
I guess director as an owner, but also as an officer. You know, many people within companies probably don't realise the liability that we have, particularly signing off tags. As a certified process, that we take a lot of liability. And gosh, you know, I look back on some of the stuff that some of our managers were signing off, and they were literally just doing lip service signing rather than actually getting into the detail. We weren't showing what we were checking. They were just a write on the back of the card saying, yep, all good, and a signature. But I think as a liability as a director, we had to take this fairly seriously, and we certainly don't want to see the teeth of WorkSafe, or even, there's enough accidents around the workplace and collapses. And just where just the simple planning process is just not being done well enough.
And I like, just in terms of conversations we have with people onboarding, a lot of it is actually, how do we prove it? How do we prove that we're doing these checking off, signing off?
Yep.
So I think a lot of this, we'll talk a lot about that coming up.
Yep, no, good point. And that was very much about it. It was about proving what we're doing, and we all have had situations. I see, we've got lots of scaffolding companies coming on board and being part of it today. And we can all honestly say, hand on heart, we've been pushed by some of the more proficient management or the main contractors who know how to manage temporary works. And, sometimes we just don't do a good enough job on providing the data. Yeah. I suppose poke in and have a look around.
And would you say knowledge of also other stakeholders on the scaffolding, clients, customers, sometimes it's they don't know what they're checking, but they don't actually have their tools to check?
Yeah, very much. And again, it's a level of competency of your main contractor, really, isn't it? And the tier one guys, and I see, Graham, you're with me. You're on the session here too. You put together some really fantastic work on the Temporary Works Forum, and that summary about how the scaffolding is in place for that. And they're probably the documents that we need to be making sure that they're available for everyone afterwards as well. But it certainly does range a lot, just knowing what the expectations are. But I think this platform gives us an opportunity to actually publish and print and probably lead in a lot of cases as this main subcontractor on site. We're the guys actually putting in place the registers and leading the process. But there's no doubt there's some really competent tier one operators that know how to manage the process. And this is about being absolutely transparent and visible of what we're doing and what we're providing.
So just a little bit about EZICHEQ is the basics of it is that we do have an inspection software. It's all running off checklists. So we're doing everything from the scaffoldings, harnesses, lanyards, vehicles. It's a very detailed checking solution. And we're not by all means a management solution for bigger picture stuff. Dave, just going into some of the solutions that are out there, could you talk about some of your experiences and just the different tools that are out there really that we can utilise?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, you've got a couple of brands there on your right-hand side, and there are some softwares that we use or have used. We originally started with Podio, which created us. We were able to sort of custom our own management tool. But I guess what we really found is that even though a lot of these I sort of think is mainly sort of column type of softwares, they're not master of everything. And so that I think the future is how we plug in these softwares to actually give us more of a management view. So I think the solution going forward is making sure that we're all integratable and we're all using APIs or just connectors to share all that information all the time.
It's always a nice to have is to keep everything in central positions really, isn't it? But making sure that you're getting data from the correct softwares and they all link together is the most important thing.
Yeah, and we're not double handling information. You know, they're all talking to each other. As soon as you do an inspection on EZICHEQ, well, it lets our Scaffolding know, and which is then one click away from actually sending to Xero, and it's been invoiced. It's as simple as that.
So just again touching, I suppose I've really covered off a little bit of that. Is EZICHEQ is a digital checklist solution. It was initially developed for the checklists, soon realising that it could be put onto vehicles, harnesses, anything that was just a lot of paperwork really. Put it all online. Now we're coming into the sites. You will see that once we do dive into a little bit more of the actual demo, it's all on one system, but it's all got, again, very easy to sort because they are all doing the same thing. We will talk a little bit about just our insights, divisions, maps. What's really important in all of that, Dave? Where did you get a lot of these sort of divisions, insights, maps? You know, why are they so important for you? Just before we dive into the demo.
Yeah, well, it was really about as a manager and a leader is actually noticing what's going on. And it's easier when you've got sort of, you know, your 9 guys, your 3 crews. You can keep your hand on what's going on all the time, but as you sort of scale up a little bit, you realise that you have to be delegating and making managers responsible for areas. You can't micromanage everything. You've got to give responsibilities if you're going to employ them. So then it's about noticing what's going on, and I see you got that quote up there as well, and that's effectively just what it is. We had to provide a quick glance. Well, what am I looking into? And we'll get into the demo and show that very quickly. And it's more so about, as a manager, what do I need to look at to recognise what's going well, but also, you know, maybe what needs improvement on as well.
Yeah, cool. I think I've heard you say it before as well, is that it's not necessarily about actually what's not happening. It's also what is happening, and that's what provides the sort of positive change.
Yeah, very much so. You know, and it's nothing like giving a bit of positive praise to say, hey, look, I noticed you got all your inspections done this week. Thank you very much. You know, I noticed that. And that's just your 101 management, really, of how to get the best out of your team culture, really.
So we will dive straight into the demo. Are you happy with me sharing your data, Dave?
Yes, you did ask beforehand. I suppose my disclaimer is that we are not perfect. You are seeing it live, and you know, it takes. Look, I'm vulnerable, and maybe you can. I'll explain as we go along. But I think that's good because it's actually, you don't want a perfect system. You know, if you've got a system that's all green and all showing that it's all rosy, the reality is that someone's probably bullshitting you on the way through. Yeah, it's actually, the font's quite small, Roddy.
Bear with me.
Yeah, that's good.
So just a quick overview. This is our dashboard. This is where pretty much managers, the owners, everything can get a very detailed look into the sectors of the business. So just, I see you have got Streamline down in that corner, Dave. You've obviously got Palmerston North, Wanganui as your divisions,
Yep.
and safety nets.
Yes.
And then you have got Streamline. So can you explain that?
I guess, first of all, I'd probably have to disclaim that all my safety nets need checking. And again, that's not an unusual process, because as of 2 weeks ago, a year ago, we checked them all. So they're all due for check. It's not saying that they're unsafe. They just need their annual check to be done again. And that'll flash up the ones that we need to isolate and take out. But the other thing too, and I think this was an enormous development, Roddy, that you guys put through, and that was the ability to create divisions that were by client or by site, particularly if you've got a larger site where you're able to then create a register just solely for that customer. I think it was really awesome. And then being able to invite them into actually, again, total visibility of what's happening. And if you're going to manage temporary works on some of these larger sites with some of the higher risk categories, why wouldn't you be transparent about where you're at with the checks and making sure that, everything is engineered and signed off and ready to go. So, like we have for Streamline there, I think we've got about 3 jobs on the go for them and another 14 jobs just about to start. It's all giving them a live situation of knowing where they're at, really. Great development. Yeah, cool. It was good.
And they seeing the importance of actually getting management of this as well?
Yeah, well, it's something new. We're certainly, not everyone's really adopting it, but I think it's just part of that new process of understanding what's going on. The managers of Streamline, they'll dip in there, but I think they just have confidence that we've got it. I think that's the critical bit. They're not in there every day, but that would be relative to the client. And I'm sure if you had a key client with some key risks, they would be wanting to keep a daily or a weekly check over on their own dashboard.
Yeah, and obviously this isn't just the only management tool they've got, is they actually have got, as we will dive into a little bit further, checking from the item. So they can also be on site looking.
Yeah, and this isn't a demo, is it, Roddy? This is just a bit of a snapshot of what we're using it for too. So
yeah. This is very much just have a quick look at how you've got it set out and the different areas here. This is probably one of our newer developments, is the Insights tab, and again, it's looking for trends. We've got status job summary here. You will see that there is a lot of checks, Dave.
Yeah. But you do have a development coming through for me, which is, we're making sure we're loading up these jobs well and truly advanced. So a lot of those jobs either haven't yet hit the stream, and we can filter those out anyways later on, but that's for another demo. But yeah, look at the vehicles, or even harnesses, and a little bit of color coding. For me as a dyslexic, I love that. I think it's fantastic. It just gives me a greater idea of where I need to be focusing on. And, I've still got a number of trucks that aren't getting checked each week. It's a quick question to ask, how come? And particularly, how come we've got continually some red lines here? What's the unsafe? I've got some alerts there. So there's some there that they may have failed something, but it doesn't mean to say that it's made the truck unsafe. It just is, there's something like we're missing some cones off this truck. We need to get some cones on, and that hasn't been remediated yet. So it's just been able to notice what's going on.
Yeah, nice. And this interests me a little bit just here, that the actual total number of checks. As I look back at this, and this is about when we implemented the Insights.
Yeah. It becomes visual, doesn't it? Suddenly the guys know that we're looking at you every week and what's going on. And then suddenly, because we start bringing it to our weekly meetings, they go, oh, Jesus. Yeah, it's going to get noticed if I don't do it.
There's a few other graphs there, all fairly very customizable. Again, this is all totally set up to each individual business and just how you want to do it.
Shall we get back into temporary works, Roddy? Because I think I see we're sort of chewing up some time here.
We are chewing up time. Okay. Yes, let's get back.
So that's the dashboard right there, isn't it? So that was just for Palmerston North.
Yeah,
so
we've got
sort of drilling in.
Palmerston North, detailed unsafe alerts, needs check, and then we're also going into a little bit more deeper stuff here, where you can start viewing things on maps. So where are my unsafe ones? Again, this is very quick. We will start moving on, and we can offer way more detailed demos if anyone is interested.
Yeah, but that's just offering the management side of it, isn't it? So if you've got if you've got jobs that have got alerts or you can actually see what's going on, you can enable to drill down. Yeah.
Cool. So just getting back to temporary works, and I suppose this is really our main feature on EZICHEQ is the QR codes, what people see right when they scan it. Oh, you're going to lose vision. Just talk to us, Dave. What kind of data are you putting on the actual label that people see daily?
Yeah, and I suppose, if you look back into the guidelines put out by Temporary Works Forum, it's very much about making sure that, I suppose, as subcontractors in the process, we're making it very visual about what is available to make sure that our scaffolds are fit for purpose. So you've got the tag, which you'll show a little bit more in detail later on, but the importance of it is actually the information within it. It does have a very visual handwritten process where you can show the loads and the purpose and who the scaffold's for, those sort of things. But importantly so, in my mind, it's actually once you elevate up on your risk profile, as soon as you're public facing, basically you need to start thinking about engineering and making sure that you've got that information available on site there. So, just one of those little tabs there that you can see the screen flicking through. Yeah, that one there. Yep. That's actually just showing you PDF files that are available relative to that job. So yeah, engineering documents, tie points, loading abilities, anything that may be relevant to making sure it's fit for purpose. So anyone can see it just by scanning the QR code and coming and having a look.
And this is all really trying to just take it away from being in a folder, really, isn't it?
Yep.
A lot of that old paper-based, and not saying it's wrong. And you mentioned it before. The godfathers of this have set it up in a very good way 20 odd years ago. Is that all of these requirements for temporary works are their signatures, the verbal, as it sometimes is, handovers. Now we're all just trying to really put it onto one system, make it accessible for anyone that does come on the site.
Yeah, and very much so, and I suppose that's the liability issue. If you've got a crane that turns up on site and they're going, well, what's the loading ability of that? And all you've got there is a tag that says special duty. You've got no understanding of actually who engineered it, has it been signed off, has it actually been peer reviewed? All of that is the information. Then you can start having some more surety and professionalism into, what our industry provides to the main contractor and the public. But I think it's also really about those inspections, and I know you'll take us through one of those shortly, but that's making sure that we're showing exactly what we did inspect, where we inspected it, were we on site? I know, and our company as well, there's been plenty of inspections that have been done by drive-by, but this is a fully auditable system. You can't get around those things.
So this is a little bit of a new innovation that we've created, is the EZICHEQ. Unfortunately, you might not be able to quite see it, but we are getting the door flap. And again, it's just trying to. Here we go. Yeah. It's removing that paper-based process where people were putting the signatures on the back, and that if a site does become unsafe, none of that data is lost. It's still there. So there is a QR code on that screen. If you do scan that, you can have a little go. We've got a demo label set up, so you can run through your own little check, just have a little play around from what customers see. And I think all of the checklists we have got on there are open. You'll see a certified check, which is done by the scaffolders, and then there's also the self-check, which is done by builders, and that was sort of simplified off those good practice guidelines.
But the certified check, Roddy, I'm not sure they'll get on this one because you'd have to be deemed certified and competent.
Yeah, I think I have opened it up. Opened it up. So this is just an example, but
just checking.
The system does actually require you to have certifications loaded in just to stop anyone from getting on there.
Yep.
So talking a little bit more about the temporary works, we have been mentioning, those client checks, certified checks, public access, it's all there. And we do have, you'll just see on that right-hand side is that full reports feature, which is just important to make sure that people are getting on there and checking.
I think we can all be honest as well and saying, there's many, when the tags get removed out of a single structure scaffolding, the likelihood of that tag actually coming back on sometimes can be really slim. And I know that we've been challenged a number of times that have said, well, the information's gone, prove to us when was the last time you actually scaffolded this, or sorry, you inspected this, or you've charged me with $75, but I can't see when you inspect, when you're here on site. We've lost many of those hard copy tags over the years and not had a leg to stand on unless your register's really tip-top in the side office.
Yeah, very much so. And it's not saying that it's always people's fault. There is sometimes the wind will blow it out, as they say.
Yes, the wind. Yes, that's right.
As they say.
Yeah.
Cool. So that sort of wraps us up. Is there anything else, Dave, that I'm missing in terms of temporary works that we really need to be dialing in?
I just want to reiterate that we haven't really talked about the details of the complexity and the procedure of those, but I know Coralie, if you haven't got those on hand, we'll make sure they're available in the notes afterwards because they're really good documents. They're well put together by the industry and they're SARNZ related as well. So they're great supporting documents. Have a good read through them. They've certainly helped us a lot in guiding to make sure that EZICHEQ provides a product that's usable for everyone. But it is about liability, isn't it? This is just about making sure that we do what we say we're doing and we're professionals at our job, giving confidence and trust.
I do have some questions that were sent through. I've popped 2 of them into the Q&A already if you would take a peek at that. But if anyone else that's on at the moment has any questions at all, please get typing, pop them through and the team can answer them while you're here.
Cool. Is there scope to work alongside / educate the likes of WorkSafe around this platform, Dave?
Yeah, picking on me. I was going to ask you.
Well, I can answer that.
Yeah, go on, you answer it because you know the answer to that.
Yeah, and we have done a lot of work with them. Unfortunately, WorkSafe will never endorse, and they will say recommend. You can go and have a look at these different types of platforms to look at, but they're very impressed with it. They just unfortunately can't put their name against it.
And I think there's been a number of other industry experts, and you know who you are, that are joining us today about giving us feedback and making sure that we're going on the right track with this as well. But, I know that you've done a lot of work and listening to a lot of feedback. We've got a number of scaffolding companies that I know that are doing things different than what Scaffold have done. And we're getting some better feedback and better ways of doing things all the time. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
And we've got, is all the data input into the system backed up by EZICHEQ? If data is lost, what is the process for retrieval? Yes, yeah, everything is totally stored in the cloud, but also backed up daily, every night. So if there was to be a severe loss, which is highly unlikely if someone was to, I had to talk to our developers about how they say that this could be lost, but it's something like an atomic bomb or something going off. So we're
in 2 parts of the world at any one time.
In 2 parts of the world at the same time, yeah. So no, all data is just totally there. If you do need it, again, it's all exportable if you were to leave the platform or wherever. So yeah.
And I think also there's we go through that decommissioning process too. Once the job is complete, we decommission it, but you haven't lost the data on that decommission. That's still all available there. It's never lost. And photos as well. We haven't really talked about the photo library, but they're a great way of making sure you're getting your evidence. Do you have a limit on photos, Roddy? What is that?
No limit at all. Yep, that's all just totally stored on the cloud as well. Yeah, we do have some people ask, why can't we reuse these QR codes? And that's just touching base, Dave, is that we are saving all data. So 5 years time, you've got another job that comes up. It's exactly the same. You can get through all of that and just bring up those old photos or just trying to find. Geographically speaking, can you work with any yard at any size, be it remote or offshore? Technically, yes. Yep, we do have extremely large customers. We've got, and again, this isn't just limited to scaffolding. Scaffolding is a sort of smaller industry for us, but it's more the high compliance side. We are going over to Australia, accepting Australian currency, but this can run anywhere in the world, yes. Is there the ability to set competency in the system against an individual user so that they are clear to sign out checks certain items, but not clear to sign out others based off their competency? Yes, we do have all of the scaffolding certifications loaded into the system. So that sort of deems what kind of level of scaffold you can sign off. Plus, we actually have got a new feature that I probably shouldn't be talking about quite yet, but it is a full user management in terms of competencies. So it might even be site access. Are they competent to go on this site, or are they even competent to check this harness? That can all be done in the system as well.
Yeah, Graham's question is very similar down that same sort of track, but can EZICHEQ be used to manage the process for design and temporary works to ensure the appropriate levels of competency and peer review are applied? The good question, Graham, and that's really going into the complexities of, as that level of risk goes up, making sure that we have a peer review either internally or externally. These aren't, I guess, custom or really designed fields we have in EZICHEQ, but we have custom fields there that we can that you can pretty much create whatever you want in those. So yeah, and even your checklist, your handovers in particular, we haven't talked about those, but your handovers, we can create those fields to actually acknowledge who did the peer review or have they been done. That there's a number of easy customizable process. So I think what I'm trying to say is that we haven't built, or Roddy hasn't built, something that's totally prescription down one line. It's got some abilities there to go sideways, whichever way you want to push it. And if that's important, getting peer review data in, no problems.
And I just see your message there on the chat, Andrew, is about the competency in the system against an individual user. So they are clear to sign out, check certain items, but not clear to sign out others based off their competency. Well, we did just answer that, didn't we?
Yep, and that's just your and also those just scanning those tags in as well. And so anybody that goes in and actually checks that their checks have been done, we can see instantly who is the competent the COC holder that has actually signed off that. So you're getting that information live as well. So Edgar, yes, a question: how secure is the data store? Do you have two-factor authentication or similar options to ensure that we can protect our data from being accessed by others? Roddy, I'll leave that with you.
Yeah, we haven't put the two-step authentication in yet. It's definitely there, and we can, depending on the company. But currently, just to keep it simplified at the moment, is that we don't, especially as we're just sort of pushing out to quite a number of people. But yeah, it's definitely there. We can do that.
It is all login based. It is all password. It's just not the second factor, is it? Yeah.
Yeah. And that sort of goes down to that public facing side. We've got a lot open, but it's also very closed in the back end as well as who can be doing those checks.
Does anyone else have any other questions for the EZICHEQ team? Raise your hand or forever hold your peace. All right. Well, if no one's going to pose another question, as long as the team is happy, we can start wrapping it up for the group.
Awesome.
Good day. All right, perfect. Well, in closing, thank you again, everyone, for coming through. We appreciate your time. The webinar today, as well as all the resources associated with it, will be made available to you all from next week onwards, and we will advertise that and send that out for you. Thank you to the team at EZICHEQ for taking time out of your day to present your product for us. It was very informative, and I'm sure there will be more questions that stem from this. And there we have it. That is the end of our Digitising the Management of Temporary Works webinar.